Florida State's projected starting center, Kaden Lyles, is out for the season, but Max and I are here today to tell you why the sky is not falling. All that and more on today's edition of Locked On Seminoles. Let's ride.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drake here, and today in the Zoom room, I got to my left or to my right, depending on how I edit this, I got Max. Max, what's going on, my guy?
Not much, man. Not much. I got the wee one in town this week. Went to the aquarium today. So pretty exciting stuff here, man. Hey, I got a question. I watched a little bit of Hard Knocks, which, by the way, folks, if you're not making Locked On your first listen every day, you're missing out because we are the only podcast network that was featured on this season of Hard Knocks so far. You can hear Locked On Lions prominently featured talking about their coach doing up downs. But Drake, I watched the episode between bedtime and when we started recording this today, and I'm just wondering, what would be your rookie song that you would sing if you were drafted and you had to do the performance they all have to do in front of their teammates?
Hey, by Outcast, not even a question.
I dig it. But what I don't dig is Kaden Lyles, man. You said it at the top of the show, and Kaden Lyles, projected starting center, depending on whose depth chart you're looking at, a guy who came from Wisconsin as a transfer to Florida State, 6'3", 310 pounds, 315 pounds. He's out. He's done for the year. He was, from talking to folks, he wasn't necessarily supposed to be. Some second opinions came in, some further diligence by the medical staff came in, and over the weekend, as Mike NOrvell said, they realized it is a lower leg injury, and he will, again, not be participating for the Florida State Seminoles. So what does that mean for the team? I mean, what does that do for your outlook on the season? Does it change anything? Help me out here.
I think one of the main things that we've kind of stressed out actually over the course of the entire offseason, and folks, my apologies, I'm basically in the process of moving, and I don't have a microphone here, so my apologies for the audio quality and the video quality on my end. But mainly that we have depth now along the offensive line, correct? And this is something that basically you and I have harped on immensely, especially with Kaden Lyles coming in, and then Mo Smith, if Kaden Lyles were to go down, Mo Smith would go into his place, and then maybe if Mo Smith goes down, hopefully not, we would have Darius Washington go in his place too as well, because I think Darius Washington did take some time last year to actually handle some snapping duties. And also we have two other options with a Thomas Shrader, who was the number 13 center in his class in 2020, and also Bryson Estes, who was a pure center when he did what was recruited actually to Florida State. We have a depth there. My only concern is that, well, not even a concern. It's something that I knew was a risk taking Kaden Lyles, as Max and you were discussing before the show started. Kaden Lyles suffered a knee injury last year. And apparently, I think it's going to be the same knee. And he also had 2 hip surgeries the previous years before. So to me, this is a risk worth taking. But some people on the beat also weren't penciling in Kaden Lyles as the surefire starter. So to me, we lose a quality depth piece. But I think this just shows that Mo Smith, who's been able to recuperate and rehab over the summer, over the offseason, it's finally his time to step up.
Yeah, and I hate to be right this way, but I think I was one of those that had really beaten the drum for Mo Smith and kind of said, look, we watched the spring game, we heard about the practices, like this isn't over. Mo Smith, I wanted him to have a year to develop because that sounded awesome, but talking to folks, seeing things happen, reading reports, like he wasn't substantially behind Kaden Lyles. And in fact, when it came to knowing the system, a lot of people would tell you Mo Smith was ahead. I think one of the problems with Kaden Lyles was that people were genuinely worried if he had it between the ears for this playbook and for this system. Obviously a really smart kid. He's got an engineering degree from Wisconsin. However, he spent 5 years playing in a much different system that has basically no relation to the Florida State system. And the center is the quarterback of the offensive line. It is the toughest position to get up to speed on from a X's and O's standpoint. So, did we lose a starter? I mean, we'll never know, But the reality is you've got a guy in Maurice Smith who took 532 snaps for you last year. Looking at Kaden Lyles, he took 115 last year at a different school. So, like, I know it's easy to feel like, oh no, this is happening again. Why does this always happen to us? And I'm giving us a dose of tough love here. A, it's Schrodinger's cat, right? Like, you had a guy transfer in, now he's not going to play for you. Well, he originally, this time, 8 months ago, you didn't have anyone there. So, in a way, you kind of lose nothing. In another way, this is what depth does. Depth absorbs injuries. Now, you can say, well, this is a camp injury. It's not a season injury. And to you, I would say, when you're looking down the barrel of an injured center, what's the difference? Guys get hurt in camp. They get hurt in the first game. They get hurt in the 6th game. They get hurt in the 12th game. And the reason you have depth is so when a guy who may be a starter or maybe a healthy second string gets hurt, you have a capable backup that can step in and fill their place. And that's what's happening here. I mean, for all we know, Kaden Lyles got hurt on a rep that in an alternate universe where he transfers to a different school, Mo Smith is your starting center and he gets hurt on the same rep. And then you don't have anyone with any meaningful experience to play center. Because, Drake, I like your point about Thomas Shrader. Came from Venice High School right south of Sarasota. He was the number 13 center in his class. He's now had a couple years in the strength program to develop, but he took 11 snaps last year. You just don't have anyone with meaningful experience at the center position. We've heard a lot of talk about Darius Washington, but there's also a lot of people hoping that Darius Washington can be one of the anchors at guard on the other side from Dylan Gibbons. So do you really want to have to move him to center? Because now you're going to rely on another transfer or someone that maybe doesn't have experience to step up and fill that spot. So, like, this is what depth does. The injury happens sooner than we wanted it to, but it is what it is. And look, Mo Smith last year, like I said, 532 snaps, 58.7 rating in run blocking. Kaden Lyles had a 60. So in run blocking, you're really not losing a whole lot. Where there is a big drop-off is pass blocking. Mo Smith had an absolutely horrid grade in pass blocking last year of 32.6. Kaden Lyles, man's nothing if not consistent, had a 60 in that as well. The difference is, and I would argue this, Kaden Lyles took 53 snaps as a pass blocker.
And Maurice also Smith, Wisconsin too, which actually helps you out a lot in that spot too.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, right, Drake, thanks for saying that. Because, like, to peel back the curtain a bit, PFF is just people who know football watching the games and grading people on each snap. There's no, like, math formula to it. There's no objective requirements. As a center, it's a lot easier to look like a great blocker when the guys on your left and the guys on your right are also great blockers.
It's like it was the cheerleader effect. They talk about in How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, where basically it's like, oh, okay, oh, you're all good. Oh, and you're like, okay, you're a decent lineman, which Kaden Lyles was a decent lineman at Wisconsin. And right. I think the more the concern that's probably on people's minds right now is basically, is he going to be eligible for another year? Basically, because he was entering his 6th year actually at Florida State. If he does go, he can go through the medical redshirt process basically and get him a 7th year. I don't typically see that happening. I think the only time I've seen that is with the Shipley kid that was the wide receiver actually in Texas back in the mid-2000s. I think Jordan Shipley was there for, 10 years, something around that time? Or 7 years?
I don't know. Is that the Will Grier rule? How long was Will Grier hanging out?
Or Riley Skinner, or what's the kid's name? Steven Garcia from South Carolina. But overall, like, to me, with COVID throwing a wrench in the plans here, you can't – this technically would be his 6th year when he applies for his medical redshirt, which he'll still be able to do. But that's a lot harder to attain because the NCAA wants to see when the injury occurred, which before the season is good for him, not good for us, but good for him to attain the medical red shirt. But then also, like, what kind of injury was it? And if it's for truly a full season ending, that helps our case. But with Kaden Lyles, to me, I don't think he will get the medical red shirt, but definitely he's actually probably most likely be eligible to actually to receive one.
Yeah, I mean, look, it reminds me of the Jordan Wilson case, right? Tight end transferred from UCLA, got hurt in preseason. Or maybe it was spring, but either way, didn't make it into the season because of a lower leg injury. He got a medical red shirt for his 6th year, which I guess is the equivalent to a 7th when you think about COVID. And he actually came back and had a serviceable year for us last year. I mean, it wasn't anything flashy, but he was helpful. So maybe Kaden gets the medical red shirt, maybe he doesn't. I mean, that's all so far down the road. But I guess my key takeaway from this is just that A, this is what depth does, and B, we're not losing Cam Irving and replacing him with a walk-on. Like, that's just, Drake, it's like the transfer thing, right? How I always say when someone leaves your school, it's like, good riddance. He was a cancer in the locker room. We're so glad he's gone. And just look at Jaden Daniels as the best example, quarterback now at LSU. His teammates literally packed his stuff for him and threw him out of the locker room. And LSU's acting like they got a potential Heisman winner on their hands. It's just like, they can't both be true, but as fans, it's what we do. It's like, this guy that got hurt, he was going to be our savior, and this guy that's backing him up, he's going to be the undoing of our team. And I don't think that's the case here. And I frankly think Florida State fans need to take a breath. They say what's the saying, Drake? Comparison is the thief of joy, and well, it's only if you're comparing yourself to the wrong people, because it's a great source of joy if you compare yourself to the right people. And while it's unfortunate it happened, I'd much rather this happen than what Wake Forest fans woke up to today, finding out, hey, your 6-year starting quarterback is going to miss substantial time this year, and their win total drops from a projection of 7 or 8 down to 2 or 3 if he doesn't play. So,
yeah, and also I think it goes down to also how you view Kaden Lyles, kind of wrapping this thing up before we go over to the micro-venture funding question that we finally have answered, and actually we're posting on YouTube, where is how did you see Kaden Lyles actually being with this team? Max, as he said before, had Mo Smith as your surefire starter. To me, differently, I actually had Dimitri Emmanuel and Bless Harris being the ones I'll coincide to the sides. So to me, I actually did see kind of a Kaden Lyles, Dimitri Emmanuel, and Bless Harris, kind of like interior. Sorry, Dylan Gibbons and Bless Harris to the outside. That's how I saw my offensive line. Now, Kaden Lyles out, that's where you slide in a Mo Smith, and you still be able to keep a Darius Washington, or you can slide in Darius Washington to handle all the snapping duties. And to me, this shows how good the depth is, but also that the sky is not falling. This season will still continue, and I still have high hopes and expectations for this team to succeed. And that's why, Max, we're going to go more of the fun part of the program. What did we do the other day, and what should the folks be expecting for the next 30 minutes?
Folks, in a very special Mailbag Monday, we decide to answer a question from a loyal listener, Microventure Funding on YouTube. He wanted to know what would the Madden ratings of this team be. So we took a little bit of a different approach. We looked at what are the categories that Madden rates players on, and who did we each think? You're going to get a three-parter, the triumvirate, the three-headed hydra, me, Drake, and Dave, talking about who would be the best on Florida State's team in each major category. So it's a lot of fun. Before we go on to that and we jump over to ourselves, make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube. We love seeing those numbers pop up. We're in the race to 1,500, and we are so excited to almost be there, but not as excited as we will be when we are there. I love you. Drake loves you. And now, Dave, who loves you too, is going to join us to talk Madden ratings related to the Florida State football team.
Adios, mi gente. Well, we'll see me in a second.
Our friends over at LinkedIn. You used LinkedIn before, haven't you?
Dude, I'm a big LinkedIn guy. LinkedIn is, there's really no better way to find a job today. They have half the spam and twice the hit rate of all the other job-seeking sites. And I mean that seriously.
I mean, whether or not you're a small business, like Dave down there over in Tallahassee, or simply you're just looking for a new job like I was, a few months ago, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn.com? Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free, and for the free. Terms may apply. Max, you kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit. Tell the folks which question we were discussing today, because I think it's a fan favorite one with microventure funding.
Yeah. As we said, microventure funding came to us with a great question that it took us a minute to get to. I apologize, but if we were going to do it, I wanted to do it right. And today we are going to look at what the Madden ratings of some guys on this team would be. Now, we took the question and we spun it a little differently. Instead of talking about specific players and what their whole slate of Madden ratings would be, we're going to look at the main Madden ratings, and we're going to talk about who on the team we each think would have the best in that category. So I want to kick it off, one that we've all got something filled in for. We're not going to jump straight into overall. That's going to be for the end. And let's start with the main three of strength, agility, and speed. Guys, who are some of your names on the list for the strongest, the most agile, and the outright fastest.
Yeah, I'll start with strength. That's an easy one for me. All you have to do is look at the weight room videos of Josh Burrell. That is a guy who, at his size and at the position he plays, should not be able to lift the weights he does. That is just a strong human being. And like, he's big for a receiver, but I get the feeling like that if that guy wanted to play middle linebacker, he could probably focus on that in the weight room and be playing that within like a month or two. Because that dude is way stronger than anybody else on the team at receiver, and probably one of the strongest people overall on the team.
Yeah, I think probably with strength, I'm probably going to go with Fabian Lovett primarily because you saw in Max's unsung hero kind of segments we did throughout the year that without him being basically clogging out the middle, actually getting all the attention towards him, Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas aren't probably be able to do as efficient. They'll probably not be able to do their jobs as efficiently on the outside edges. So to me, I'm going to go Fabian Lovett here.
I think those are good picks. I'm trying to look for places maybe where we have difference. We have the same in a lot of not the same, but similar ones. Agility, I think, is a great one. You know, Drake, you got Jordan Travis there. But I like Dave's pick because I picked the same one. I think Ja'Kai Douglas, man, that's a guy that's got some lateral agility, some lateral quickness. But I want to talk about speed because we've seen well, there's been a lot of talk about speed on this team. I mean, we've heard Jared Verse talk about maybe being the fastest. We've heard maybe Travis is the fastest. We got some new receivers. We've also seen Mike Norvell has been working on his 100-meter dash racing Robert Cooper. So
he's got great form.
He does, man. The guy knows how to run. So who do y'all have? Who do y'all think is the fastest guy on the team? 99 speed rating in Madden if they had to give it to him.
I think I gotta go Deuce Spann. I think just basically you see the highlights of his 5 catches at Illinois. It's him just running, bowling past everybody. And then you pair that up with the practice reports and also the scrimmage, basically him connecting on a deep ball touchdown by A.J. Duffy, basically just burning our secondary. To me, I go with Deuce Spann.
Yeah, I want to continue eating crow on Trey Benson, and like we'll see this play out. It probably will get even worse based on all indications of how much crow I'm gonna have to eat. But the dude's 215 pounds, and you've heard a lot of talk about him potentially being the fastest player on the team. And at that size, being in that conversation is special. And I think several players on the team have said he's going to be the fastest player this year, which for a guy like Deuce Spann, who's a lot lighter than Trey Benson is, that's just incredible speed.
Yeah, that's what's crazy when you just take the size into account. But I don't know. This one was a tough one for me because I know we have a few guys that have run track. And I think that if I'm going with clock times, didn't CJ, the new freshman running back from over in the Panhandle, didn't he run like a sub 10.5 or
you
like?
Mean CJ Campbell?
Yeah, did he run like a 10 or like a 10.7 or something in the 100 in
high 2 years
school?
ago though? I think it was I think he's like his 3rd year coming up now, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, maybe he's a redshirt freshman. I don't know, but either way, I know that he has legit track times. So he's definitely got a high speed rating. He's up there. I think when you talk about like breakaway speed, Deuce Spann is who we're looking at, but I feel like Toa Philly's probably in that discussion. I mean, we've seen him once he gets his gears going, but for me, I want to move to acceleration because that's the one I have a very confident answer on, and that's Jared Verse. We've seen the videos, we've heard the story, and I honestly don't know if there's anyone on the team that from like 0 to 7 yards can burst the way he can. Especially, we've now heard 2 or 3 different stories of him chasing down Jordan Travis. We've seen videos of him in drills just exploding off the ball, beating it around a dummy, and you're like, how does he move from stop to there that quickly? So Jared Verse, a defender, oddly enough, is my number 1 in acceleration.
At his size, that's probably the most impressive acceleration. I went with Toa Philly just because like it's the opposite thing. He weighs so little that to get up to top speed takes the guy like half a second. And we saw it several times. Like when he's not running into contact, the dude can move, and we need him to put on weight and put on a lot more weight and then some more weight. But the dude can get up to top speed fast.
Yeah, I was stuck between Ja'Kai Douglas and Lawrence Toa Philly. I forgot about Jared Verse with this one, and also because that not only the acceleration that you see basically in camp, but also one of the big plays that kind of showed him out to Power 5 teams was him chasing down Sean Tucker. For those of you that don't know, Sean Tucker is the number 1 running back in the conference at Syracuse. He's the only reason why Dino Ayers might have a job slot this season. But mainly, I went with Ja'Kai Douglas because I think we've all seen that play down the sideline, his kind of trademark wheel route when he goes on the outside, just basically where he just blows by everybody with that. And to me, I think with Ja'Kai, if you give him a little bit of room, he'll make you pay for it. Just, he's not the most physical guy, but he's definitely able to basically catch when he needs to when he's sprinting out forwards.
Yeah, so this next one, we've got tons of different people, so I'm really interested to see how we got here. Is awareness. My number one player for awareness is Lawrence Toafili, simply because of that Clemson play last year. Had the awareness to realize he probably wasn't down, and it wasn't just that. If that happened in the middle of the field, people run after the whistle all the time. But he had the awareness to also not go out of bounds after he'd just been thrown through a spin cycle, tossed 10 feet, and realized, oh, there's a sideline. Let me make sure I tiptoe it, and then got himself to the end zone. That to me makes him the most aware guy on our team in my Madden ratings.
Yeah, I was split on this one between Jamie Robinson and Dylan Gibbons. Dylan Gibbons was our best offensive lineman in almost every category last year. That dude he's the oldest player on the offensive line. He's the effective on-field coach of the offensive line. And he is the reason that the offensive line wasn't a lot worse despite injuries last year. I ultimately went with him over Jamie Robinson, who is the captain of the defense. And that dude knows what's going on the field at every position, every play. Super impressive, but went with Gibbons on this one.
I was stuck between Toafili and Akeem because when Toafili does have that open space and basically is seeing where he needs to go next, he's very good with that next chest move. The only reason why I want my number one pick in the spot, which is Akeem Dent, is because of what Dave is saying with Jamie Robinson. I think can be equally applied to Akeem Dent. And me personally, I think Akeem Dent's a little more talented than Jamie. And also when targeted last year, he was the number one safety in the conference when it came to coverage. He also allowed the least amount of success rate and also reception rate based on when he was covering. So to me, with Akeem Dent, basically this is more of a projected thing as well. I do think by the end of the season that we'll probably be talking about Akeem Dent being the number one safety out of the two right now, between him and Jamie Robinson.
Injury, I guess this is kind of like the Iron Man stat. Who's the better the rating, the less you get hurt.
Yeah.
Who we got what? Kalen DeLoach there, Jamie Robinson. Looking at it now, I'm actually going to put D-Wash in there. If D-Wash played 806 snaps last year. Holy cow, that's a lot of snaps.
It is.
Yeah.
That is so many snaps. That's
what's funny?
That guy must have been, he may have been banged up, but geez, that's a lot of snaps.
It's funny you say that because
decently well too.
I didn't realize this till I looked it up. Jarvis Brownlee played 844 snaps last year, which is, I know he's not here. That led the team, and that's just a ridiculous stat. But Jamie Robinson was at 755. That's why I went with him. Dude didn't miss plays.
Yeah, it pretty much had to have, right? I'm trying to look on my sheet here, and you look at the number of plays a team runs, and number one in the country, Utah State ran the most plays in the country last year at 912 offensive plays, filtering out garbage time. So they probably ran 912, probably pushing 1,000, but still, that means he played pretty much a full season worth of snaps on any meaningful team. That's pretty nuts, man. So anyway, I'm going to go with D-Wash because Brownlee is now going to try not to get burned by Deuce Spann at Louisville.
All right, let's do one more. We're going to hit the break. I think the next one you have basically is Toughness, and this is basically one that I think, Max, you and I kind of have the same choice.
Yeah, so I'll use my other choice since you've got, that way we don't overlap. Toughness to find in Madden is how quickly they rebound from injury. So I obviously had to go with the guy Winston Wright because if nothing else, he's wearing shoulder pads and he got his legs snapped in half 4 or 5 months ago. So that is pretty freaking nuts. When you want to talk about recovery from injury, Winston Wright is my number one Madden rating right there. Who do you guys got?
And then your number two choice was my number one choice was basically Dylan Gibbons. Basically, the offensive line is probably one of those positions in football where you're asked to play a little more through injuries. It was no secret to anybody last season and also probably entering this year. Dylan Gibbons is definitely someone that plays through being hurt a lot most of the time, and he also was your best offensive lineman last year. So not only was he hurt, but was also to be able to play a very high level while he was hurt, actually trying to help your team each and every single day. So to me, I go with Dylan Gibbons. And Dave, I know your crow-eating tour, I think, continues here with your selection.
Yeah, I went with Trey Benson. That dude had a catastrophic knee injury to the point that I questioned why we were using a scholarship on him. That looks really stupid now because not only has the guy bounced back to be in the rotation for us at running back, by all accounts, that dude is probably going to be our leading back and possibly even our bell cow running back, which we haven't had, I don't think, since Cam Akers with Corbin and Trayshawn splitting carries last year. He could end the year as the reliable guy that we're just feeding the ball to, which is crazy after the injury he had.
That's just, it's wild.
Tough.
What modern medicine's
Modern
become.
medicine is insane.
I mean,
at this point.
That's
seriously.
toughness.
It's toughness, and it's also, you know what else is wild, Max? These odds over at betonline.net. Max, we're going to do some fun little picks here because we had to fade Dave last week.
Yeah,
But today, I'm going to give you some conference odds, actually. You ready for that?
Sure.
All right. Basically, I know you're a big fan of basically this team over here in the Atlantic. Louisville is plus 2,800. I think we had this conversation before. What do you make of that selection?
Louisville is plus 2,800. Okay, so my numbers tell me that Louisville on a neutral field would be underdogs to 4 teams in the ACC. Only 2 of those are in their division. I'm sorry, 3 of those are in their division. So basically, they've got to get through 3 teams that they should be underdogs to make it to the conference championship. The rest of their schedule, they should be favored, right? So it's 3 against 4 or 3 against 5, 8 conference games. What were their odds again?
2,800.
Plus 2,800.
2,800. So it's $1 or 100 wins you 2,800.
Yeah.
So it's 28 to 1 odds. Yeah. So that's basically an implied odds of 3%. Do I think there's a better than 3.5% chance that they can win more games in a schedule where they're only going to be an underdog 3 times out of their 8 games? Yeah, I think that those odds are absurd. Yeah, that's
Malik Cunningham, man.
Easy value bet. I think now, does that mean it's going to happen? No, right? They've got to beat Clemson. They've got to beat NC State. But there's a world. One of those teams, by the way, right now would be Wake Forest. I'm still working on some adjustments. I don't think Wake Forest is a better team than Louisville this year. But there's a world where Clemson and NC State both beat each other. NC State, I think, by the way, it's going to be the revenge tour this year. Now it's going to be their chance to have a historic season, and we get to play them in Carter Finley. So I hope they're ready for that. And if they drop a game to us or someone like that, yeah, I think you see a really realistic scenario where Louisville could squeeze their way into the championship. And who are they going to play from the Coastal? Pittsburgh without Kenny Pickett and without Addison? Okay. So, yes, I think at 28 to 1, great bet. Everyone should make it.
And folks, head on over right now to make that bet at betonline.net. Use promo code Locked On. That's promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON, BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Max, this is basically your baby. Take us down to the rabbit hole. Take us down to the end with basically the next part of this Madden break. Sorry. Was it 2K? There was one.
No, it's Madden. This is the Madden breakdown. Yeah,
Okay.
there's not really 2K in football. They used to make it for a little. It's actually decent
It's coming
games.
back next year.
Yeah. They had the first person mode in one of the last ones I remember. It's kind of cool. And then you could you had a house, which I don't play the 2K basketball games, but I guess now they've really run with that. But you could deck your house out and cool stuff.
Like some anti crib situation.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you could have pool tables and stuff. I don't know. It was neat. And then I guess I don't know all the legal stuff of it. But let's get to the receiver stuff, guys. We've got catching. We've got catch in traffic. We've got route running. We've got spectacular catch, and we've got release. So who do you guys have?
Winston right for the entire thing and just go to the next one.
Who do y'all have for those 5 of catching, catch in traffic, route running, spectacular catch, and release?
Drake, I think we have similar answers for at least some of these. Catching overall to me is Winston Wright. That dude should be, depending on how he comes back from his injury. That's the tough part of forecasting.
Yeah, but it's a Madden rating. So he still has a rating from before he was injured until we see him play. So
he should be the best receiver on our team. Forgetting about the injury, he should be our number 1 this year. He was incredible at West Virginia. I don't think there's anybody on the team better at just pure catching than Winston Wright.
I'm going to go with Micah Pittman and go against the grain. I'm just very high on him this year, especially basically hearing from practice reports. And I think that man is going to be on a little bit of a revenge tour. But with catching traffic, I think, Dave, you also have Michael Pittman there. I have Winston Wright. And then with the route running, though, I think with Winston, route running, right? With the, I'm freaking sound like Daffy Duck over here, but route running, basically 2 out of 3 of us have Winston Wright, actually. And I think it's a little interesting, Max, that this was probably my, I guess, second selection for this spot. I think Keyshawn Helton is yours.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about a pure route runner, Keyshawn is the best one I've seen on the team that's been proven. Does he always catch the ball at the end of the route? Not necessarily. And that's the big issue that he's got to work on. But I think he's probably our most polished route runner, especially if I'm trying to change this around. And then, I gave Toa Philly the elusive or the awareness one just from one play. Same with Ontario Wilson. When I think of catches from last year, there's probably ones I'm forgetting about. 4th and 14 was great, but that was more of a great throw into a little spot. And, Parchment just did what he was supposed to do. Ontario Wilson had that catch against Florida. That's the one. So I look at spectacular catch. Not saying it's consistent, but I remember that catch from Florida. And to me, I'm like, that's my number one at spectacular catches, Ontario Wilson. And then for release, you both have Ja'Kai Douglas. So I'm trying to go against the grain.
You don't have to, though.
But I don't really know if anyone else is like really great at getting open when they've got coverage on them. In fact, we've lamented how bad they all are at this. But I'm going to say Trayshawn Ward just because he does a really good job coming out of the backfield. He knows how to do his little man block stutter and then release it into a screen or release it to the flats. So I'll give a running back the nod at the top Madden rating for release and the catching.
I mean, he's a good pass catching back. I mean, that's basically where he did most of his damage last year. And because he gave him all that space to, run around with, and that basically goes towards his awareness also being very good when it comes to basically attacking the weak points of the defense. So I think it's a really good pick.
So let's talk defenders. We've got, number one's tackling. We got some different names on here, guys. Tell me who's your pick for the highest rated tackler on the team, and why'd you pick him?
Yeah, Jamie Robinson. That's an easy pick for me. That dude was number one on the team in PFF for tackling. You could be as confident that if Jamie Robinson was the last stop to make the stop, that it would be made. Just to be clear, he played 755 snaps. He graded 86.6 in tackling. That's pretty incredible. He only missed 5 tackles on 800 and whatever snaps. That's a lot to be the last line of defense and still only missing 5 tackles. That's as good as it gets to me. You're not going to get much better than that at the safety spot.
Yeah, mine's going to be Tatum Bethune primarily because I would have hoped basically that Jamie's going to be asked to tackle less because our men up front and the men in the middle are basically going to be playing a lot better. And then Tatum Bethune does bring with him from UCF, I know it's Cooper 5, 100 plus tackles from last year and 10 tackles for loss. So to me, I'm going with someone that showed that he was at an elite level basically as last stop, and I'm going with Tatum Bethune here.
So I had kind of the same reasoning for Bethune. I think he's got 108 tackles on the year. I mean, that kind of to me is like, okay, well, he's got 108 tackles on the year. I mean, he's the most sure tackler you've got. I think number one on our team last year had like 83, 86, something like that. So when I see a guy that had 108, it's like, well, numbers don't lie. Check the scoreboard, and yeah, that's who I've got to go with there. We got the moves, right? We got the finesse move. We've got the block shedding. We've got the power move. I typed him in the wrong spot. For me, the power move is I don't have a power move. I'll let you guys talk on that one. My finesse move is Verse because, again, I've seen the videos, and I think he's going to have the best.
That's what
and my block shedder, I like y'all's pick, but I'm going with Big Coop. Even if he's getting double teamed, I mean, he's a guy that can just push his way in there. He can clog up holes. He can make himself really a nightmare to block. So he's my number one block shedder there. But I want to hear y'all's power, finesse, and block shedding moves.
Yeah, I went with Coop at the power move too, because that dude was top 8 on the team in pass rush at a position where I don't think he should have been. And his move is the power move. That dude is strong as an ox, takes on double teams, just powerful guy. Finesse move for me though was a little different, and it's a guy people I think keep forgetting about. Dennis Briggs was the number one pass rusher on the team last year, and that dude didn't just do it with power moves. He has improved every year he's been here. He could be our best pass rusher this year. He could be our best defender this year if he stays healthy. So yeah, give me Briggs at the finesse move.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they were having to cut block him in that Louisville game, which led to his injury. So I think that's a good call.
I think it's a good call too. I think with block shedding, I picked Dennis Briggs for basically the reasons Dave just listed. Finesse move for the reasons Max just listed, because that kid's going to be a sicko, and to me, he's also my number one for pursuit. Power move to me, I think, is Fabian Lovett. I think you couldn't go wrong with either or him or Robert Cooper. I definitely do think that Fabian Lovett probably uses his weight a little bit better than Coop. And I think Fabian Lovett probably has more of a future in the NFL when it comes to basically the skill set that he has. He actually is able to help collapse the pocket. And like I said before, he uses his power to basically kind of draw more attention towards the interior and allow for people like Jermaine Johnson, Keir Thomas, and hopefully this season, Dennis Briggs, and Jared Verse basically, cooking the backfield. So to me, I think Fabian Lovett's the move for me here, for power move.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, man. For me, for this next one is pursuit, and I think we're all going to interpret this different ways. So I'm actually interested to hear y'all's logic here, because I can kind of see it with the names you have on the list. Mine for pursuit is going to be Fabian Lovett again, because last year we saw several plays of him making tackles like 15 yards downfield when a run got through the first level, and he is very good at not giving up on plays, chasing them down. And there's one I remember explicitly, I believe it was against Syracuse, where he literally made the tackle 25 yards downfild, and you're like, he had to come out for a play or two, but you just look, and this monster of a man's chasing.
He's like a train.
Yeah, so him, actually, dude, but by that criteria, Coop running Mike NOrvell down, he's got some pursuit there.
He can move.
Yeah, for me, that's kind of the direction I went, right? Is like, who, based on their physical tools, would you think probably is not great at chasing people down and does like the most with, their size? So I've got them for that, but I want to hear y'all's two's picks for pursuit.
Yeah, mine's like super quick. Mine just look up Syracuse and just Jared Verse running down Sean Tucker. That's just that a man of that size and that stature should not be able to run down someone like Sean Tucker like that. So that's basically more my prisoner of the moment kind of selection there was with Jared Verse, with just that move right there.
And there's like the two ways to look at this, I think, which is the defensive lineman chasing down quarterbacks and running backs. And I think that's probably the more impressive of the two, given that they're much bigger than defensive backs and linebackers. But again, I went with Jamie Robinson for the same reason I went with tackling. The dude just didn't let people get by him, and he was asked to do a lot more than he probably should have been. Again, missed 5 tackles on 800 snaps, led the team in tackles. The people just didn't get by him. So if he's going after somebody who's already made a catch, I'm confident he's tracking him down.
Yeah, I feel like, Dave, I'm pretty sure I already know who's going to be your number one overall player. I feel like looking at this list,
yeah,
it's a lot of Jamie Robinson. So, man, really digging deep into the roster here, dude. Appreciate you. So for me, I actually went with a newcomer for this next one. So we're going to look at coverage. We got play recognition, coverage. We got press. I don't know why I put Cooper in there. I put him in the wrong spot. Play recognition, I'm going with A.Z. Thomas because of what we've heard about him in practices. We've heard that he's had several picks. And again, you go watch some of his interviews, and there's one in particular where he's able to very quickly articulate how his responsibilities and how his recognition led to the interception. So that seems like something he's really good at. That's something we're hearing he's really good at. And, I'm going to give the newcomer the highest Madden rating in play recognition, and that's Azrae Thomas.
Yeah, let me make this quick. Like you said, Max, I have a lot of the same person on this list. Play recognition and coverage for me are both also Jamie Robinson. He literally led the team in coverage among defensive backs among the team last year. That's pretty easy. And play recognition, the guy's the leader of our defense. He's the guy calling things out, and he sees everything on the field. He obviously is good at recognizing plays, or every PFF grade of his wouldn't have basically led the defense.
And I mainly want Dennis Briggs primarily because, Max, how many times when we were, breaking down or watching the games over and over again, the defensive line, was filling in the wrong gap or basically biting when the QB was running or did not know what play was going on in the backfield.
Yeah. That was definitely an issue last year, right? Like they were pretty good at the, team rushing. Talked about that quite a bit, but yeah, we saw. Garrett Shrader is a great example of that. He really, really took advantage of the D line, not fully understand when it was going to be a run and just kind of getting by them. And yeah, I agree.
And the one player you saw the best, I think, at that when he was healthy was Dennis Briggs. And as you're saying, for this season, we hope he basically is, closest to 100%. I definitely think that him coming back adds like a different dynamic to this team heading forward. And then for coverage, me personally, I did a Marion Cooper because I think he'll be probably your most solid defensive back this year. I was tempted to put Azrae Thomas because of what we're hearing from practice, but I didn't think I need to see more of him on the field, actually, basically during live game action before I can, go on a limb with him.
I think that's fair. And then for coverage, you've got Duke Cooper, Dave. You've got Jamie Robinson, and you both had that one filled in when I was going to write one. I don't know. I feel like they're both. It could be either of those guys, right?
You could pick somebody, yeah.
That's a toss up. I'm gonna agree to agree. It's like I think but one of them is probably your best coverage guy. I wish I had kind of a hot take there, but I don't. Your press guy though, I am going to go with again another newcomer because I don't think we have a great press guy right now, and I think that Sam McCall is going to fill that void for you. He's already 190 pounds. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's got long arms. He looks the part. And I think if we're doing just Madden ratings, doesn't mean he's going to start. It doesn't mean he's going to do all that. It just means I think he would numerically have the highest press coverage rating of our current secondary.
Yeah, Drake, you mentioned it about Akeem Dent. That dude made it tough for receivers to get open and catch balls. So he allowed an NFL passer rating of 42.4 against him. It's just ridiculous. He doesn't let guys get open, and even when they are, he closes the gap and doesn't let them catch it. It's incredible.
I want him for my coverage guy then.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Akeem Dent too, because just that kid's going to definitely be something special this season. I have a feeling.
All right, we got 3 more left. We've got hit power. And then we got to talk about our blockers. Guys, who do you think is the hardest hitting safety in the league?
I mean, this would have been easy, right? If Louisville didn't have Jarvis Brownlee, because it would have been Jarvis Brownlee. I don't know, man. I love the way Fabian Lovett hits. Like, you don't get a lot of glory just playing the interior defensive line position, but that dude hits hard. I know you're expected to hit hard when you're that big, but he just does.
Yeah, here I go with someone whose nickname is affectionately known as Boomstick, and it's Brendan Gant. Because I think out of every single play last year, the few times that he was able to actually make a tackle, I'm 100% sure I was worried that we're going to some sort of targeting, some sort of unsportsmanlike penalty. But the man just knows how to hit, lives to hit, and basically now him being a linebacker, not having to worry about coverage as much as he used formerly as safety. To me, I'm going to go with Brendan Gant here.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. I think you guys are looking at people holistically, and there's some sleepers out there for these ratings. I'm going to go with the Big Daddy himself. First of all, he's got to know what's going on out there, and he's got to get to the guy. Those are struggles. I'll give you that. But when I think of hard hitter, and I think of someone that can really lay the wood on someone, I'm thinking DJ Lundy. Okay, so I wouldn't want to be tackled by anyone on this team. But, like, when I think of who would I really not want to just get laid out by, again, he has to figure out what play I'm running, not get juked out, get to me before I'm able to beat him. But if he could do all those things, we have seen DJ Lundy put some freaking lumber on people. And I think he's probably now that he's 235 too instead of 255, he's probably just as strong and he's moving faster. Yeah, he's my number one for hit power. Let's talk about pass blocking, run blocking. Who do you guys got? Well, Dave, really good here with the diversity.
It's an easy one. I mean, Dylan Gibbons was top of the list in run blocking, and I think he was either at or among the top of the list in pass blocking, or vice versa. But either way, he was either the best or the second best at both of those on the team last year. I don't know that anybody's going to be better than him, especially with another year in the system here. I trust Dylan Gibbons to be the best pass blocker and run blocker this year.
I mean, Dylan Gibbons is your best lineman. So he's automatically, to me, he was your best pass blocker last year, and I think that kind of continues this year. The only reason I kind of go against the grain here with Dimitri Emanuel for run blocking is because that he already has the history with Alex Atkins. His best years actually serviceable as an offensive lineman were when Alex Atkins was the run game coordinator and offensive coordinator actually over at Charlotte when he was there before he left Florida State. And to me, I think this is one of those matches made in heaven. To me, with him, Dimitri Emanuel having a better supporting cast around him for blocking, I definitely see that Dimitri Emanuel probably will be the best run blocker for this team this year.
So let me ask you this. We have 2 reunions on this team, right? We've got Tatum Bethune, who was recruited by and played under Randy Shannon his first year at UCF. And we've got Dimitri Emanuel, who was recruited by and played under Alex Atkins his first year at Charlotte. Both also got a year, or I guess 2 years without those guys in the system. So who do you think is going to have the better reunion, Tatum and Randy or Dimitri and Alex?
Tatum and Randy.
Yeah, Tatum and Randy.
Okay.
Because I think you've seen Tatum Bethune actually still perform really well when Randy Shannon left.
So best linebacker
last year. And then with Dimitri Emanuel, you did see kind of the drop off actually when he did leave. Now with the reunion, it should probably help him out a little bit more. But to me, Tatum Bethune you only saw him improve each and every single year actually when he was at UCF, even when Randy was gone.
No, I think that makes sense. And I also don't know, with Emanuel, like we don't know if he's even going to be a starter, whereas we're pretty sure that Tatum Bethune is going to be your starting middle linebacker. I'm trying to decide which way to go here because I can't not give Dylan Gibbons one of them. I think Dylan is a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker, but I also think that, how do I put this? I think he was more impactful in the run blocking last year. Like when I think of, okay, without looking it up, the highlights of Dylan Gibbons I remember in my head, it was him in the second and third level just plowing people over, creating holes for folks. So I'm going to give him the best run blocker. And then for the best pass blocker rating, I think I'm going to go with my boy Robert Scott. I just want to make sure his number wasn't like super bad in any of these before I say that. But I think Robert Scott at 6'6", he's at 330 now. I think that guy has the potential to be your best pass blocker. He's got the length, and now he's finally got the anchors, right? Just the big legs that he can stick into the ground, start pushing defensive ends back. So I'm pretty excited about him as a pass blocker. And if we're rating on potential like Madden tends to do, it's probably who I'm going to go with, because I don't want us to give Dylan Gibbons just every award.
We could. I mean, I liked it a lot.
Of course we could, but that's not fun for the people. We got to talk about some of the other folks. And also, if you want to look at just the ratings, right, of our best pass blockers, is this right?
It's Dylan.
Oh, yeah, no, I was right. Yeah, Brady Scott's your number one pass blocker on 204 pass blocking snaps last year. He was your number one pass blocker.
Yeah, I think I told that to David, I was like, now I'm like, Brady Scott? Really?
Yeah.
Our Brady Scott in 2022?
Yeah. Huh.
All right, so let's put a bow on this and just go with who our overalls are. Dave, we know yours is Jamie Robinson, so we can spare details for everybody else here.
Yeah.
Max, who was your number one overall on this team?
Oh man, it's so hard to decide. There's so much talent here, and it's like
Does
you
it
got to
rhyme with
look at
Torrin
it.
Travis?
Yeah, I mean, obviously. No, you got to look at it positionally, because that's how they're going to be rated. And when I go down the list and I look at tackling, I look at power move, I look at finesse move, I look at block shedding, I look at pursuit, play recognition, coverage, press. That one doesn't really count. Hit power. It's got to be Jared Verse, because I think on your team right now, if you were to rate them on a scale of 1 to 100, he's your most complete defensive player by those categories. And yeah, that's who I'm going with. I think, for example, I think his coverage number for the way he's going to be able to cover the flats with the tools he has is going to be higher than, say, a Jamie Robinson's block shedding number or something like that. So I think that he's good enough at the areas that D linemen might not always be great at, and to make up for the deficiencies when you're trying to put him head to head against other positions. Jared Verse, my number one overall Madden rating for today. Ask me tomorrow, it'll probably change.
I hate you so much because that was going to be mine, primarily because this is the perfect time for overreactions. And even though we keep saying that he's not Jermaine Johnson, which he's not, but
no, Jermaine Johnson would be number one on this team if he were here.
Yeah, but the more we hear out of practice, the more we see, the more the scrimmage was just everyone lighting everyone up. Maybe we can just, it's not overreaction, because all we're doing is reacting to what we're seeing. And Jared Verse is definitely the number one option probably on this team for defense. Fabian Lovett was a close second for myself, because I think Fabian Lovett has kind of molded himself as an anchor, as a leader of that defensive line, even with Jared Verse being there. But I think Jared Verse, athletically wise, and what he brings to the team, and also you see basically him chumming it up with Alex Atkins, basically saying, I'm in the backfield more than your quarterback. And he brings that kind of like that trash talk tenacity that we love. I love that trash talking he brings. But folks, thank you guys so much for joining us here. And also drop down below in the comments, who you think would be either each segment, whether it be speed, acceleration, power move, finesse move. Drop it down in the comments below, and we'll read them off. We'll see what you do. Or maybe you can put a Y Rector in as for number one for catching, as I was going to do before the show even started. Max, tell the folks to do what they should be doing with the podcast, and Dave, hit them with the YouTube instructions.
Well, there was one. I don't think I put it in here. There's like an impact block category, and I thought about putting Preston Daniel in there. I was like, no one knows how to get your team a 15-yard penalty like Preston Daniel, but they look cool. That is an impactful block.
That was a clean block.
Yeah, back the team up 15 yards. It's impactful. But yeah, for the podcast, folks, if you're on Apple, if you're on Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you are, make sure you do that services version of following us, of subscribing, or whatever they call it. That way we pop to the top of your queues. So when you're like, hey, got to knock out the lawn work, or it's 3 a.m. and your new baby's crying, and you're going to stick the noise canceling headphones in, we're right there with our daily episode at the top of your list, ready to rock and roll with you through the tough times and the good alike.
And for YouTube, if you like the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, ding the little bell. It'll notify you when our videos drop, and leave us a comment below. Tell us what you thought about the episode, and we can always read your questions in Mailbag Mondays, just like this one.
Did we just have the guy not on video tell him about YouTube?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I thought it was
I'm
kind
just
of
making
wrong
sure.
and pretty funny.
I'm with you.
So, Michael Venture thank you so much for the question. And folks, like we said before, as Dave was just saying, please put your questions down below on the comment section. This was Drake. That was Max, and that was Dave from Parts Unknown. We'll see y'all next time on Locked On Seminoles. Take care, everybody.
Go Noles.
Yeah,
Thanks for asking.